Welcome to the Totally Honest Cooking Show. I'm Mark. Today we are doing shrimp and grits, which has two main components. You might have already guessed. Shrimp and grits. Now, once you've got those two down, there's a lot of variations. We'll talk about some of them as we go. Today we're using old-fashioned grits. You either want to use stone ground grits or old-fashioned grits. Stone ground seemed preferred, but this was what they had at the supermarket when I went. The difference between the three types of grits is primarily grain size. The grains in the stone ground grits are larger, the grains in the old-fashioned grits are slightly smaller, and the grains in the 5-minute grits are super fine so that they cook fast. You don't want to use the 5-minute grits if you're cooking shrimp grits, just because why simplify it that much if you're already spending money on shrimp? Now, we're here today with our head on, tail on, shell on shrimp that we are going to peel and devein, and we will go through that process now. These do look somewhat intimidating, but the reason that we're using the head on, tail on shrimp is because we're going to make a shrimp stock that will really enhance the dish, and that's the point. So you're going to start by grasping the head and squeeze and twist, and if it still looks goopy, you might have to trim up a little bit later on. I'm gonna try a few more. This is my first time doing this, but one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because I felt kind of awkward about it, you know. And the Totally Honest Cooking Show, see, that one came better, is all about embracing what makes us feel awkward. I don't like the amount of guts right there, so I'm just gonna snip it off. After we've taken the head off, we're gonna want to devein it. Now, I'm not sure if I've been doing this wrong my whole life or not, because I've been taking the vein off on the bottom of the shrimp, and I've seen videos where they take the vein off at the top of the shrimp. So am I really removing the wrong vein? And if so, what am I doing with my life, I guess is the question. So most of them say make your incision here, and yep, I have in fact been removing the wrong vein of the shrimp for most of my adult life. Don't tell on me. So this is the part of the shrimp that you're going to want to remove. Make sure that you get that out of there. I've actually been going off the front of the shrimp. So as a novice, I'd been going with this lower vein, which is obvious on the underside of the shrimp. But what you really want to remove is this one. See that right there? That's the one you want. This is one of those things that we're going to run into occasionally on the Totally Honest Cooking Show, where I just realize that I'm dumb. But I think that it's important to recognize when we're doing the things wrong, because I think that that's one of those things that brings us together, and I think it's what makes people realize that anyone can cook. Because I've probably been doing this wrong for forever. But other than the fact that when you think about it, it's kind of gross, it didn't affect my meals very much. Either that means I don't have a very discerning palate, or it means that, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, I'm gonna decapitate and then peel a whole bunch of shrimp, and then I'll be back. The shrimp are all chilling in the fridge, so we're gonna start working on our stock. We're gonna do that by heating up our pan on medium heat and throwing our heads and shells into the pan. The goal here is to just give them a little heat first. Whoops, I bullocks it. I was supposed to rinse these first, so let's do that. Okay, I've rinsed these under a cold tap for just a minute or so, just to get any of the stank they picked up in the store off them. And now we're just gonna mix them around a little bit, heat them up, let them get a little bit of flavor. While they're going on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and crush 3 cloves of garlic. Cut an onion in half. Remove the paper bit. Chop off the bottom out of habit. Quarter it. And be ready to throw it in the pot. We've also got out our bay leaves. We're gonna get a couple of those ready. Okay, so these are starting to look a little pinker. I'm gonna go ahead and add 6 cups of water. I'm gonna drop in the green parts of some green onions that I've got. The bottoms are going into the actual dish. I'm dropping in the half of the onion, which I've quartered. 3 small bay leaves. And my 3 cloves of garlic. And we're just gonna bring this all to a boil. And we're making kind of a primitive shrimp stock. We're gonna drain all this crap out of it later. But the goal is to reduce this down to about 4 cups. This part of the recipe I took from Alton Brown's cookbook, Everyday Cook, but my approach is very different from his. He says to start with the head-on shrimp and then add the 6 cups of water, and then that's more or less the stock that he uses. He brines the shrimp in the stock overnight. We're not going to do that because I don't want to wait that long. But this might take up to like 45 minutes to reduce. Keep an eye on it and we'll find out. By the way, we do want to bring this up to a boil and then reduce to a simmer. So we're starting over medium-high heat and then we're going to go down to a lower heat to maintain the simmer. So don't go nuts. We're also going to take this moment to add a handful of black peppercorns, just taken right out of my pepper grinder. We're also going to take this time to prep our garnishes and flavor enhancers. We're going to juice 1 lemon, but not this lemon. Ew, why did I buy this? We're going to juice this lemon. We're going to chop up a poblano pepper. We're going to chop up a red pepper. And we're going to peel and dice 5 green onions. I think that's 5. Yeah, that's 5. We're also going to put this somewhere and use it tomorrow with breakfast. We've done this before, but I'm going to go over it again just in case you haven't watched the older, crappier videos. You peel these by removing the outsides. Sometimes they come easy, sometimes they're a little bit more difficult. And you just rip off these bits. Once they're peeled, you don't really need to rinse them. They're not like leeks where you've got to make sure that the grit didn't get under them. The outsides of these are the bigger concerns. Usually you do take the root off first though. I did that kind of bass-ackwardsly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the rest of them. Then we'll be back in to... That was actually 6 and not 5. I'm probably only going to use 5 of these because 5 is probably more than I need, and 6 is probably not necessary. So we can go in with the onion. Probably this one. It's a little less attractive. Sorry, buddy. Once we're peeled, we're gonna commence to dicing. To be honest, I looked at a lot of recipes for shrimp grits before I decided on what I wanted to do. I've kind of taken them all in, and at this point I'm just going to riff, because I find that it's easier to talk and cook while I riff, and also if I make any mistakes, it's more fun that way. So I don't know how much of this I'm going to use, but I'm thinking probably 4, because a lot of recipes call for 3, and I, turns out, really like these. So green onions in everything. Stir your stock occasionally. I didn't find a single recipe that called for a poblano pepper, but I like them, and I thought, why not? I found that that is definitely one place where that rat in Ratatouille was right. Take the things you like, combine them, put them in foods. Now that doesn't necessarily mean to boil your noodles in code red or anything crazy like that, but you can find ways to marry the flavors that you otherwise like into dishes. Here it's simple. Just, you know, chop the pepper up, throw it in there. Hurl it in with reckless abandon, as I frequently say in videos. Part of it is just that I want the color contrast of the green and the red, but I also think that the flavor profile of the pepper will add something to this. One day, when I have a bigger space to work in, it would be a dream to make like 3 or 4 of these recipes back to back, or derivative recipes of 3 or 4 of these recipes that I've looked at, and compare the different nuances. But I don't have the space, nor can I justify the expense at the moment. With that said, moving on to my red pepper. One of the things about this that I've tried to keep in mind is that you don't want to overpower the shrimp, because the shrimp are supposed to be a focal point here. But I like to play. And yeah, we could just toss the shrimp in lemon juice and call it a day. But if we're gonna take the time to watch a cooking video about it, we might as well zazz it up a little bit, right? You want to do your basics. You could just use, I don't know, 4 cups of chicken stock, or seafood stock if you're lucky enough to live someplace where it's easy to get seafood stock. I don't know, cup of cream. Fry up your shrimp. Throw on a little lemon juice. Cook your grits, and bam, you're done. But I wanted to go a little bit more elevated than that. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes. It looks like broth. We're gonna go ahead and strain it through a strainer and see how much we got. Okay, so we're coming in just shy of 4 cups, which is just fine. It's just what I want. We'll clean that up in a minute. Actually, yeah, just shy of 4 cups. And you can see we've gotten all that flavor out of the shrimp. It looks good. So we're gonna move into the next phase. Give me a second. Clean all this up. Now it's time to make the grits part of the shrimp grits. I went ahead and evacuated into a smaller pot just to clear up a little space. I got 4 cups of the shrimp stock-ish. It's a little bit lower than that. And I'm gonna add to it 1 cup of heavy cream. Now, the purists out there will tell you that grits are food for poor people who would not have always had access to cream traditionally, and that for that reason you should skip the cream. I went over that in my head a little bit, and I decided to keep the cream. Not all recipes use the cream, but the idea is that the fat from the cream coats your tongue and gives the other flavors in the dish a palate to play on, as it was explained to me when I asked in one of the chef forums on Reddit, because I was like, hey, why is that like that? So we're gonna go ahead and add the grits while whisking continuously to avoid clumping. And now this is gonna take about 20 minutes to 30 minutes to boil down, but it should really be a powerhouse of flavor once it gets going. Okay, so it's already kind of boiling. I'm gonna cut it back because we're gonna let it simmer. I've got my lid ready so that when it's finished I can keep it warm while we make the shrimp mixture over here. So we're just going to monitor this for about 20 minutes or until it thickens. And we're just going to keep whisking it so that it doesn't clump up. Don't forget to add a fairly large pinch of salt. We'll say that's about a teaspoon, maybe half a teaspoon. That's to make up for the fact that I didn't put salt in the stock while I was cooking it. The grits are done. We're going to go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of butter and put our lid on it. I'll whisk that up in a little bit when the butter's more melted. We're going to take about a teaspoon of Cajun seasoning, slightly rounded. I'm going to dump it in with the lemon juice and give it a quick whisk. I figure that this was easier than trying to put them in separately and disperse them that way. Okay, so we're just gonna pour them over. Then we're gonna toss them around a little bit, right? Okay. So we'll let these sit like this while we do our bacon. So I'm heating my bacon over medium heat. We're going to use 4 strips, which we're then going to render as you do and crumble. Then we're going to cook everything else in the bacon fat. The bacon is relaxing just off screen. I'm going to go ahead and drain off most of the fat, not all the fat. We'll set that aside in case we want to do anything with it. I'm going to throw in my peppers, and I'm going to add in my shrimp. And it looks like they took a lot of the fat, so I'm going to add in a little slop of fat. A slop is a technical term. Okay, and we're just going to move them around. Now these are only going to take like 2 minutes aside, and the vegetables will cook up quick too. So keep an eye on these. Don't blink because they will be done. And it probably would have made more sense to do this separately, but I'm a hungry man. You're going to start flipping them as they start turning pink. If they don't look quite done, that's fine. You're just gonna give them a couple minutes. As all this other stuff cooks down, you're just gonna give them a toss anyway, just to make sure everybody's incorporated. And that way everybody can get to know each other a little bit better. Get that lemon juice all over everything. While those are going, I'm gonna chop up my bacon. Just give it a rough chop. Normally I don't like my bacon crispy, so I might have over crisped this a little bit, just because I'm not used to cooking that way. I happen to be hashtag floppy bacon squad. But we're almost ready to plate. Get it ready for the gram. Okay, so by cooking these together, I have probably married the flavors a little bit, but I have also increased the risk of them not being done. So that is a trade-off. So you're going to want to look around for anybody who needs to spend a little bit more time on their other side and migrate them to the center if you did it this way. Honestly, I just didn't want to spend the extra time, and I didn't want to dirty the extra pan. And most of the time, if I make it like this, it turns out fine. I have made shrimp grits before. I've never made it this way before. I tend to experiment, and I don't make them frequently enough to have a one way of doing it. I think if I made them once a week for a month, I would really have preferences. But as it stands, I'm just like, ooh, shrimp grits, yay. Their mere existence makes me happy. So everybody more or less looks done. I'm going to go ahead and add the green onions. And I'm just going to add a handful. I'm not going to add all of these. A handful and a pinch. And maybe I'll throw some in my bowl at the end. Okay, let's return the bacon to the pan. Just let everybody get back together. Okay, time to serve up and make our post for the gram. Get ourselves a big old serving of grits. Grab a bunch of our mixture here. In whatever way you find the easiest way to do that. Try to avoid making a mess. It's hard sometimes. Life is complicated and difficult. If you feel like you got to rearrange things a little bit to make it Insta-worthy, feel free to. I'm going to add some raw scallions in the middle. And sprinkle a little cheese around. Not too much because shrimp are delicate, but a little bit, a pinch, you know. Have fun with it. Anyway, here is our shrimp grits. Thanks for watching the Totally Honest Cooking Show. I'm Mark. Like, subscribe, click the little bell, maybe leave a comment, let me know what I should cook next. I'll see you next Wednesday.